What's up, guys? Today we're covering gaming news over the last week. Starting off, we're going to Xbox and Game Pass and the whole Activision Blizzard deal. We're talking the CMA and how they're trying to block them. And now the CMA put out this report that says that Xbox admitted that Game Pass cannibalizes on game sales. Now, in that they say in the report, CMA says that Microsoft also submitted that its internal analysis shows a redacted or undisclosed percent decline in base game sales 12 months following their addition on Game Pass, which is a huge counter to what Phil Spencer had said before, back in I think it was 2018, where he said that it actually helps game sales. Now, this kind of makes sense to most gamers. We know that if you put a game on a subscription, that of course it's not going to sell as well. Why would you pay $70 for a game that you can pay $10 for a month and get a whole bunch of games and that one's included? It just doesn't make any sense. So of course it would sell less. Xbox was kind of trying to spin this, but of course it's not. Now, eventually, not too long, about the day after this came out, Xbox did release a statement that said that they try to make deals specific to games, right? So they orient each deal to each game individually, and that they try to make it so that it's beneficial for all parties, which is great. But they don't actually refute the claim of the CMA. They don't try to say that, oh, that's not true. They're just trying to spin it in like, oh, well, yeah, maybe it does, but it's good for each publisher. Now, the truth is with Game Pass is it's a really good consumer product. Right now, it doesn't cost very much, and you get a lot of options on there. Now, for the developer side, though, it's really good, I think, for indie developers and smaller developers who maybe wouldn't have as many eyes on their game as they need. But for big AAA developers, it just doesn't make any sense. Grand Theft Auto 6 isn't going to put it on Game Pass when they could sell 20 million units at $70 a pop. Of course, they're not going to want it. No matter what the bag is, Microsoft isn't going to give them. They're not going to get enough money to make up for that. However much that is. That's a lot of money. So they wouldn't do that. Now, a little indie developer who's worried they might not sell 50,000 copies and they're selling their game at $15, that's not going to cover everyone who's worked on it for the whole time they worked on it, plus give them enough to work to the next one. So they might say, hey, if Microsoft gives us, 500,000, 1 million, whatever, that covers all of our costs. We know we're good. Okay, we put it on there. So even if we don't sell very much after, it's okay. Then that's fine. That makes sense for them. But of course, it's going to eat into game sales. It just makes sense. Now, moving on from the green to the red, we're going to talk Nintendo. Now, they had their Nintendo Direct not very long ago. If you want to see my reaction to that, look down in the description below. You'll see it there. And but after that Direct, which was pretty good, and we can talk about that more, but after that Direct came out, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is coming out in May, showed up on the eShop, but it showed up at $70. First Nintendo game to go that far, at least, in a long time. Now, there's two sides of the coin on this, right? You have some people saying that it doesn't deserve to be $70, blah, 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 it's not worth it. Other people saying, well, it's a great game, and it's going to be great, and Breath of the Wild was great, and so it deserved to be $70. And the truth is, $70 kind of makes sense. Inflation over the last decade has taken everything else up, but games have kind of stayed the same. So the move up to 70 doesn't surprise me. I don't know that it's out of line. That's kind of how I felt with PlayStation as well. But what is interesting is that they've picked mid-gen, so it's not a new generation like what PlayStation did. And so it's this one game, and Nintendo came out with a statement saying that each game will be based individually on whether it's going to be 70 or 60 or 50 or 40 or whatever they choose to do. Now they have this kind of huge tiered system. But it is interesting, right? Because you have these huge games that have really cutting edge graphics and, on new hardware for $60 to $70, and then Nintendo wants to put theirs out for $70. Now, their games are big, and they're well made. They're not my favorite usually, personally, but that doesn't mean they're not good. They're well made games. Legend of Zelda in particular, Breath of the Wild, was hugely popular. A lot of people loved it. It's a big world, lots to do. So is it worth 70? It may well be. My answer, though, to all of that is always, what is it worth to you? Why don't you let me know in the comments? If it's worth $70 to you, then buy it, right? But if it's not, then you hold off. That's why I don't buy a lot of Nintendo games, because while I think they look interesting, they look cool, it's not worth the price. And Nintendo doesn't go on sale almost ever, so I don't end up buying a lot of Nintendo games. If I really want them, I just get them at full price because I know they're always going to be there, right? But there's just not that many for me personally. But what about you? Let me know. Next up, we're talking game sales. And this one, if you know or have been following games for a while, you knew this was coming. Hogwarts Legacy came out on the 10th, and it is blowing the competition away. You probably heard the 1.3 million concurrents or whatever that exact number was. That was a little bit skewed to me because it includes players and watchers and all of that combined. So I don't really understand what that tells me, other than it's the biggest it's ever been for any game, other than Cyberpunk. Okay, great. But then the one that's more telling to me is on Steam. It had like over 800, like almost 900,000 players at its peak time, meaning at one time, just south of 1 million. And that doesn't include all the other players that have played during the day. Just at one time, it had that much. That is insane. This game is going to sell record, ridiculous, disgusting numbers. We're talking, it's going to be in that top 3 along with, Pokemon and Call of Duty and Madden and FIFA. It's going to be in that conversation. And, I know there's this whole conversation around it on the other side, but to me, we're just talking about video game. That's left out. That boycott obviously worked super well. So, let's just leave that out of it for me personally anyway. But this game, I'm excited. I haven't played it yet. I'm hoping to get my copy here pretty soon. It looks good. If you're playing it, let me know what you think. I'm pretty excited to play it. It looks pretty awesome. All right, next up, we're talking Final Fantasy, but maybe not the one you're thinking of. You see, the Theater Rhythm game came out, and its critic rating is ridiculous. This game has come out at 88 on Metacritic for the PS4, 87 on Switch. Now remember, this is the rhythm game with the little chibi guys underneath, and you have just kind of rhythm-based stuff, but they did add in some cool RPGs, right? So as you go through combat, your characters level up and stuff. I don't know a lot about it. There is a demo. I haven't played it. Maybe you have. If not, and you're interested, give it a shot. I know I want to. I want to go try out that demo. I've never cared about rhythm fantasy games. Now, I love Final Fantasy. I love Final Fantasy music. And so this seems like a cool option. I'm not a huge fan of that art style. And so it's never been anything I'm interested in. And the rhythm game mechanics aren't usually my thing. But this one sounds pretty promising. It's getting really good reviews. It's looking really cool. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's really worth it. So anyway, so there is that demo. So go try it out and see what you think. I think I'm going to try it out. And who knows, maybe I'll put up a video and we can talk about it. Next up, we got the subscription services. We got Game Pass and PlayStation Extra Premium tier thing. In Game Pass, they got a couple of games coming out this last week, including Mountain Blade 2, Bannerlord, which has been talked about for a long time. It was in development for a long time, and it's a cool medieval kind of RPG fantasy, builder, you build a town, all different kinds of things, a lot to it. I don't know a lot about these games, but I'm excited to try it. In fact, if you're going to be around tomorrow, my goal is to stream that, so maybe come and hang out. Also, they released Cities Skylines Remastered. That's on the 15th. Shadow Warrior 3 Definitive Edition is on the 16th. And yeah, so those are all good additions to Xbox. You got some leaving here pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that. And we got some big ones like Octopath Traveler leaving beginning of March. So keep an eye out on that. Now, in PlayStation, they have been sleeping for months, just like nothing coming out, and it was kind of lame, to be honest. I was on it for a little while and then I hopped off, but right now it's looking good. So let's get to it. So real quick here on extra, premium included. If you have premium, obviously you have extra as well. But they're starting off with a big one. They got Horizon Forbidden West coming into the subscription service. That is a big deal. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't sell copies. They sold plenty. Is it top tier? Not quite. Obviously, like God of War Ragnarok sold more, but it still sold plenty. It's still in the top 3 or 4 of I think it's maybe number 5 actually of PlayStation sales all last year. So it still did good, right? But this is going to move in here and it will bring traffic. And that's the whole point, is to get more people in. Plus they got the DLC coming out soon. And so they're trying to get more people in the game so that those people will then go and buy the DLC. Okay, there's a whole strategy. It makes sense. It's going to work. Okay, after that, you got The Quarry, which is kind of that horror vibe, where you make decisions and stuff. Not anything I'm interested in, but, it's there. Resident Evil 7. You got Outriders, which is that games as a service, not as a service. It's a game I'm really interested in, but I just have never tried it. But it plays like, a Destiny or something, third-person shooter with powers and stuff. But you have to be online all the time, but it's not a live service. I don't know. It's interesting. So that's coming. You got Scarlet Nexus. Now, Scarlet Nexus is a sweet JRPG. It's got cool action combat. It's really fast and flashy. It's super fun. High recommendation for me. If you haven't played it, hop on there. And if you are a physical game guy, which I totally understand, that's me too, it's cheap. You can get it for like $20-25 all the time. So Scarlet Nexus, check that one out. They also got Borderlands 3, Tekken 7, Ace Combat 7, Earth Defense Force 5, those are all pretty cool coming to that service. They also, the Tokyo RPG Factory from Square Enix, their trio of games is coming. That's I Am Setsuna the Lost Sphere and Oninaki. I really want to try out Oninaki and just have never been able to fork out the money for it, right? It's like $50. Every once in a while it goes on sale for like $25-30, but it's just never high enough on my list. And so maybe I'll hop back in and try it. I do want to play that. It also got The Forgotten City, which is a mystery adventure game, right? Where I think it's like everything freezes, you try to figure some stuff out, and when you run into the wall, then you leave and you come back or something like that. But it's interesting. Now, the classics in the premium tier, that is where it gets really interesting. They finally woke up. Now, to start off with, they did bring Destroy All Humans, which is the PS4 remake of a PS2 game. And so it's kind of funny, they're sneaking in their PS2 games, but they're actually the PS4 remake that you can already play. It's kind of a cheap way around it, but who knows, maybe things will come later. They got Harvest Moon Back to Nature. Now, Harvest Moon games, they're all pretty much the same, just graphics are a little different, maybe some different characters, but they're fun. They're good farming games. They're good chill games, cozy games. They're pretty good. You also got Wild Arms 2, which is a cool old JRPG that's kind of got a Western, cowboy-esque aesthetic. Pretty cool. It's a good old game on PS1. But the number one, the most important, Legend of Dragoon. Legend of Dragoon was a tremendous JRPG back on the PlayStation 1. It's got beautiful pre-rendered backgrounds. It's got a really different and cool kind of time-based combat system. The story is good. The music is good. Some of the writing is questionable, but it's fun. And if you got any kind of nostalgia for PS1 RPGs and you haven't played that one, do. And if you have, you already know. It's a great game. Check it out. Okay, moving on to games released this last week. There's a bunch of them. I'm not covering every last one, but I got a chunk here that I think are worth noting. Number one is a game we already talked about, and that's Hogwarts Legacy. That's the biggest game that's coming out. That came out on the 10th, and it's gonna just keep rolling. It's already hard to find, so if you haven't gotten it, just keep your eye out, or just know you're gonna have to wait a couple weeks if you order it. But after that, we got Labyrinth of Galeria, the Moon Society, that came out on Valentine's Day. And that's a first-person dungeon crawler. It's anime aesthetic, kind of like a Disgaea art style. My buddy Taylor at the Gaming Shelf did a review on that, so I'll put that in the description below, and make sure you check that out. Also on Valentine's Day, Blanc came out, which was shown at the Nintendo Direct, which is kind of that cool black and white. It's got like a deer fawn and a wolf cub kind of palling around. It looks really cute. I don't know. Returnal is coming to PC. Master Race, you are eating good. Okay, this is a really cool third-person action roguelike sci-fi setting. It's super cool, and PC settings look immaculate. They just really toned everything up. It looks awesome. It's going to be cool. If you haven't played it yet, give it a shot. This game was like made for PC. It's going to fit great, and it's going to do really well, I think. We also got Pharaoh, A New Era. That's a remake of an old game. Theater Rhythm, which we were talking about Final Fantasy, the Final Bar Line, that came out on 16th, as well as Shadow Warrior 3, the Definitive Edition. Now, the 17th day, we got Wild Hearts and Tales of Symphonia Remastered. Wild Hearts is that Monster Hunter style game that has some like Fortnite building and a little bit of Death Stranding traversal mechanics. It looks really cool. Unfortunately, some of the reviews coming out are saying that performance is struggling. Others have said that they've had no problem. You know, I know like Fighting Cowboy was saying he's got no problem. He's putting up videos all the time and he's having a great time. But like Skillup said that he had horrible time and couldn't get it to run well on just about anything. And so that's kind of a bummer. Hopefully they patch it up soon because it looks really cool. I really want to play it, and if they do patch it up, it might be one I go pick up. So, you know, check it out, see what you think, but I think it looks pretty cool. Tales of Symphonia Remastered has its own problems. It has not come out well. It sounds like they didn't really do anything to touch it up or remaster it. There's lots of problems with it. Some people are saying it loads faster on the GameCube than it does on the Switch. That's a problem. Apparently it's a little better on PS4, but that's bad. That's an old game. That should run perfectly smooth, 60 frames, easy. You know, why is that game having problems? I don't know. Bandai, Nintendo, whoever all touched that, they need to figure that out because that's a mess. Okay, now moving on to games coming out this week. We got some bangers. Okay, to start off with, we got Atomic Heart coming out the 21st. That's that sci-fi first-person shooter. Gives a little bit of BioShock vibe, kind of, with like AI robots and stuff. They seem to not take themselves too seriously. They have a lot of jokes and humorous trailers. And so, you know, it looks pretty fun. It's coming into Game Pass, so you know, give it a shot. We also have Like a Dragon Ishin. That's coming out the 21st as well. And that's a Yakuza kind of play where it's a remake of an old game that was Japan only. They're bringing it over here. They're updating it. It's basically a full remake. They're adding in all these characters, including those from Yakuza Like a Dragon. But then all those characters, it's almost like they're in a play, right? And you're not in modern Japan. You're into like old samurai, you know, feudal Japan and doing things back there. So that could be cool if you're into that. Those games aren't really my cup of tea, but you know, if they're yours, go for it. It looks pretty good. Now, big one is on the 22nd, PSVR 2 is coming out along with all the games, including Call of the Mountain. Call of the Mountain reviews just came out, and it's looking pretty decent. Some people really hate it, and others really love it. Sitting at like 80, 79, 80 on Metacritic right now. We'll see once more reviews pile in. But it looks pretty good. VR2, I mean, the PSVR sold really well. This is a way better upgrade. So if you're into VR, might be worth picking up. For me, that is a much later thing. I've never been a VR person, so maybe someday down the line I wouldn't mind trying it, but it's just not a day one thing for me. You got Sons of the Forest. That's coming out. That's a sequel to The Forest. It's kind of a survival horror-esque game out there. That's not my cup of tea, but a lot of people are really excited about it. Kirby's Return to Dreamland. It's a Kirby game, so what else do you say about Kirby? But then, to me, the really cool one that's coming out next week is Octopath Traveler 2. That's coming out on the 24th. The first one, I loved a lot about it. Basically, everything except the story, right? I loved the music and the art style and the combat, but I just couldn't care less about the story or the characters. And so this one sounds like they're putting that together a little bit more. They're meshing the stories. They're bringing it all together. And so hopefully they do, and it works out well because it looks awesome. And I'm excited to give it a try. There's a demo out for that right now. So make sure if you're interested, go give that a shot. Square does a really good job with these lately where if you play the demo, then it you can save that progress and carry it over right into the main game. So it's a really good deal for you. So make sure you check that out. All right, well, that wrapped things up for me this week. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. It means a lot to me, and it helps with all the YouTube algorithm nonsense, right? Also, if you enjoy this kind of content, I put out gaming news and reviews, and we talk about games and have a good time. And so if that interests you, would you mind hitting that subscribe button? That it does a lot for me, and thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Later.